everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Elisa Welsh, and I'm here with the amazing Kyle Webster.
Amazing.
Woo!
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So today is really exciting because we're going to be drawing in Photoshop. Today's daily challenge is going to be on Discord. So everyone, let's take a look at that. The challenge is to create digital lettering art with smudge text and brushes. So this is where you can find the challenge. So today you guys can post your feedback, post your stuff for feedback in the design feedback channel. We can see that some people have already started posting their work in here from yesterday. This is Kathleen's stuff from this morning.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that later today. And we also have a chat and win that'll happen pretty soon in I think 30 minutes or an hour. And that means that you guys have to get in the chat, start chatting with us, let us know where you're from, and then we'll give you 100 free stickers from Sticker Mule.
Nice.
Yay!
That's a good deal.
Yeah. And if you don't win, we also have a deal. So you'll get 10 stickers for $1, which is also awesome. So make sure to get into the chat. I see we have Sam, we have Jordan, Alberto, Riaz. Nice to see you again. Hello, Renee, Dune, Sam, Richard, Nor. Tell us where you're from. We'd love to see. Hi, Pokey. I'm seeing some familiar faces.
I always like to know which countries people are from, like who's here from overseas. That's always fun to see as well.
Peru, living in Miami.
Cool, okay.
Nice. Greetings
Great.
from San Francisco. We're here in San Francisco as well today.
Yeah.
Paris. Hi, Omar. Hi, Joseph.
So I missed how the technique worked this morning with the smudging. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. But I was overhearing it while I was getting myself set up for the stream.
Yeah.
And I did not catch that. So either I need to rewatch it or I can get Kathleen to show me that in person.
I'm sure Kathleen could show you.
Yeah, because it sounded really interesting, but I didn't see what was going on the screen. Anyway, well, thanks for having me, and I want to do some drawing today. I'm especially interested in answering questions about anything you might want to talk about regarding brushes or Photoshop or illustration in general. We were just talking about some things that I had recently covered when I was doing a little podcast with one of our friends, Rocky Rourke, who has been a guest on Adobe Live numerous times, such as art education, the value of it, but also where now you have options for learning other than simply going to an art school or going to a four-year school. There are plenty of resources out there now, and it's pretty amazing. But also we talked a little bit about career paths and how weird it is when you start doing one thing, you're aiming to do this one thing in the future, and the path to that is not always so straight or so linear.
You transition into different roles, you find more of what you like.
Yes, it's like this. It's very serpentine. Is that the word?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect word.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so if you guys have questions about that, I think that would be awesome to talk about. Kyle can have some really good input for you all.
I just have opinions. Everyone's opinions are different, but I'd be really happy to talk about what happened to me with those things, with education specifically, and then career path, but also just friends I know and how they got to where they are and what paths they took to get there. There are just so many options now. I don't feel like it's as limited as it used to be. Like you must follow this very specific path to get to become a working artist, you know?
There's so many resources out there for you to learn. I think this is also a great one. Watching people work is an awesome way to learn and see how you can improve your technique, your efficiency, everything. I think watching is like one of the best things that you can do.
I wish this existed when I was in school. It did not. So we would watch our professors' work, right there in the classroom in the studio. That was pretty cool. So I want to talk about what I'm going to draw today. So we're going to do something a little silly.
Silly is always the best.
Yeah, it's fun. So I was sent a list of these made-up holidays people have now. There's a different made-up holiday pretty much for every day of the year. There was National Bring Your Cat to Work Day. There was something about National Olive Day. These are all in June. And
Ice cream day, donut day, all the food days. Those are my favorite ones.
Who came up with the olive day? Do people love olives that much?
I don't know.
You must have really been scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I don't like olives that much, so I don't understand that one.
So we were on the phone and we were talking about it, and we thought about, well, what about a sort of a James Bond cat? Because of the martini idea with the olives. So I'm going to try and do a little James Bond cat.
That's exciting.
Why not?
I'm ready to
in
see
doing
that.
so, I can walk through, sketching and talking about these things, and everyone can watch the process.
That sounds great.
And if you don't like that idea, tell us so in the chat, and maybe we'll switch it up.
And maybe we can add something into the drawing
That's
as well.
right. We can always do that. It's a very fluid process, very flexible. So one thing I do want to say is that when I'm working on in Photoshop or in any digital drawing environment, one of the things I find a little difficult or straining on my eyes is the white of the canvas. And the first thing I always do is just fill the background layer with a color that isn't white.
Is that just so that you can like see?
It helps me
easier?
reduce eye strain
Yeah.
because the contrast is so, you're staring at this white box. And unless you were drawing outside in the sun and had the light of the sun reflecting off the
never
paper,
that
it's
bright,
no, exactly. And I think it's bad for us to get used to this. So why not give your eyes a little rest?
Especially on a screen, it's just shining light into your eyes. When you're looking at
Yeah.
paper, it's never that intense, right?
Never, never, never. I mean, it drives me nuts. So there, I'm just knocking it back a little. It's not like I knocked it down to a dark color, but it's just enough to take that glare off. And I'm drawing with the Tilterific pencil, which, if you haven't used it before, this is one of the pencils that takes advantage of the erodible tip category of brushes in Photoshop. They're a lesser used, lesser appreciated category of brushes that were introduced in CS5 when they came out with the mixer brushes. And what's really cool about them is that if you have a tablet that respects and acknowledges pen tilt, and the angle of your pen, you can see that in the top left corner of my screen here, there's this little diagram which is showing me where my stylus is. And if I were to move it more vertical, or rather perpendicular to the surface, you'll see that it comes upright, like so. But if I tilt it down, it's showing me that I'm now going to be using the side of the lead, just like a real pencil. So I can draw a thin line. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here.
And Kyle's kind of going like this right now with his pen.
Yeah,
And
sorry.
as he gets closer to the screen, you can see that it's registering that tilt.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just going like
Demonstrate
this.
with my hand. So here's the surface of the paper. If I'm perpendicular, of the tablet, excuse me, if I'm perpendicular, it's straight upright. And as I angle it down this way, it's going to respect that, and it's going to change the width of the mark, just like a real pencil would. And so if you look on the screen here, I'm drawing with it now vertically, rather, or perpendicular, right? So that's going to give me a thin line. As I tilt it down, I can use the side of the lead and shade. And it also respects the angle that you're approaching the canvas at. So I can even hold it like I would hold a charcoal pencil. This is what I call the screwdriver grip.
I see.
And I can shade this way
Yeah.
or this way. Are we getting a nice over-the-shoulder shot here? Anyway, you get the idea. And what's nice is that way you can still maintain that pressure sensitivity for the lightness or the darkness of the mark, but you can also change the width.
You have so much more control.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's a lovely thing. So that's in the Mega Pack, which you can all now, of course, download from your CC library. You go to Photoshop, you open up your brushes panel, and I've shown this several times in live streams. It's always worth showing again. Those of you who have not yet grabbed all the 1,600 brushes you now have available to you, simply go up to this little drop-down menu here. Some people call it a hamburger menu. It's in the top right corner of your brushes panel. And you come on down to Get More Brushes. And when you tap on that, it'll ask you to log in with your CC account. And once you do, you can come over here and you can scroll down.
And see all of Kyle's brushes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So here you have all these brush sets and literally thousands, so much to play with. We also have the updates in here. So you'll notice the summer 2018 brushes are here at the bottom. And up at the top, the most recent one, which was the winter 2019 brushes. And there's another summer brush set coming out in a few weeks. So more for you to play with there.
Betty's asking if you could recommend a tablet and pencil for a beginner with these tools. Like what would be good to start off with? Because this is a huge machine.
It is, yeah. That's a great question. Well, for one thing, these are actually, this model of Wacom Cintiq is actually 6 or 7 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It's the 22 HD. I think it's one of the best ones they've ever made, and I still use mine at home on a daily basis. I do have other Cintiqs, of course, that I've used for other drawing exercises, and they're great and everything, but this seems to be the workhorse for me. It's a great size. And so these you can actually get used now or refurbished for about half of what they used to be. But if you really are not in the mood to spend that kind of money or don't have the budget for something, I think used, these run about $1,400. Wacom does make tablets in the $300 to $400 range that are not, you don't draw on the screen, but you do have a nice tablet. Yeah, you plug it in USB.
Okay.
And but then of course now a lot of people are moving to the iPad, and that's a great surface to draw on. So it's kind of a difficult thing to decide because we're in a transition period right now. Some people are working desktop.
The iPad is getting so good.
It's getting so good.
And fast and crisp and clear.
Very good stuff. And you can use Photoshop brushes, of course, in Adobe Sketch and Photoshop Sketch on the iPad, which is a free app. But some of you may have seen the announcement this week about Adobe Fresco, which will be an even more robust illustration program that also supports Photoshop brushes. So,
formerly known as Project Gemini. We just announced this week that it's called Adobe Fresco, and Kyle has been helping us with that, and he has curated a set of brushes for Adobe Fresco as well.
Yes, I have, and you can come tune in on Friday, and I'll be here with Renee, and we'll be talking about Better Know a Brush in that Better Know a Brush series. And we'll cover some of those brushes in there and talk about them a little bit.
Will you be on Fresco, working on Fresco?
I will be. Okay. I'll be drawing in Fresco and showing it off a little bit.
Yay!
Yeah. So, so to get back to that question, it's a difficult question to answer right now. It really depends on your budget. So I would say if you want an all-in-one kind of solution that is more affordable, the iPad's a good way to go. If you want a drawing tablet that is not a Cintiq, you could go for one of the smaller Wacom tablets. The Intuos line is what I recommend, INTUOS. And then, of course, there are other brands now of tablets you can buy that are draw on screen. And I have tested some of them. Some of them are quite good. I'm not saying this because I love Wacom products, but honestly, the Wacom products are the best. They're the most... They feel the best to draw on. There's a tempered glass. It almost has a little tooth to it. They sell their Styli with felt tip nibs, which are fantastic.
And
love
there's
those.
different ones that you can get, right? Depending on preferences, how you draw.
Yeah, they have, I think, 4 different kinds of nibs, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of flexibility there, as well as over 8,000 levels of pressure sensitivity recognition. So, I mean, you really can make a really faint line, and it'll pick it up.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty fantastic. I keep taking my 2 fingers and reaching over to the screen to undo.
To undo, because that's what we're doing in Fresco. I know. I'm seeing you like draw and then go like this, and nothing's happening. I've
been drawing in Fresco now for over a year on a daily basis while we've been building it. So I'm just in the habit. So we're going to draw this silly cat, and while I'm sketching and stuff, please, if you have questions or want to discuss some other things, then we can go for it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, so I'll start with a really rough, big shape. Now this is how I usually draw everything, is I work with a big shape. This is going to be the body of the cat, the head of the cat, the general area that he kind of is going to occupy in the drawing, okay? So this might not look like much right now, but that's okay. Oh look, we have a new cushion. Hey, I'm going to stand up for a second and sit. So they have these office chairs, but I'm a shorty. And I have this tiny cushion under me right now to prop me up, and this looks much better and more comfortable. So
we were running around earlier trying to find a chair, and we had this little tiny one.
I was sitting on an InDesign pillow.
So now we have a way better cushion for Kyle.
At this. Oh, this is deluxe. Woo. Yep.
Much better.
This is good.
A lot more comfortable, right?
Yes. Ooh, that feels fantastic. Okay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right, so I think he's going to be leaning up on the bar, that kind of thing. So I'm already thinking about stuff like the pose of the body. Like I want this, here's what I want. I want the spine to tilt.
And what brush are you using right now,
This
Kyle?
is that Tilterific pencil. I really love drawing with it because I can get the fine lines, I can get the light lines, I can get the dark lines, or I can do some shading.
Yeah, got it.
It just does everything I want it to do.
Hey,
so
Laura.
I think he's going to come out
Hey,
this
Ariana.
way.
Alberto likes your deluxe comment about the pillow.
Oh, it's deluxe. Yeah, this is only the best at Adobe Live.
Oh yeah, we only have the best pillows.
The best pillows.
Amanda's sitting on a pillow shaped like toast. I think you're winning, Amanda.
That's cool. Did you make that pillow?
They have so many fancy different types of pillows now and all different forms that you'd want. So I'm sure that you could find one of those.
The beauty of Etsy.
Hey Choi, yes, this is live. Archie has a question. He says, "Hi Kyle, nice to see you. I have a question. In your opinion, what does a good portfolio look like, especially for illustration?"
That's a good question. I'd be happy to show you my portfolio and talk about the importance of how you curate your stuff. And there are so many different opinions flying around about this lately, and I had actually written a little article. If you'd like to read it, I highly recommend it. If you don't mind, I'll jump out just to it here in a second and share it with everybody.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I can.
I have your
you've got my
portfolio
portfolio
right
there.
here.
No problemo.
So here's Kyle's work. So many different styles, variations.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to talk about. I did this early on. I realized that I just wasn't satisfied working in one style. It was boring, and also it didn't lead to as much work for me personally. So I started just putting anything I did on the website as long as I felt like it was good work. And that's really the question there.
And what is good work to you?
Good. That's a good question. So for me, it comes down to A, is it solving the client's problem, whatever it is that they've come to you and they say, we need this illustration to do X, Y, Z. B, is the craftsmanship good? Is it, are you thinking about the fundamentals in every piece you do, no matter how simple it is, line, shape, color, balance, all these kinds of things, composition, these design fundamentals, I think, which oftentimes kind of people forget about or just get so busy that they can't figure out why an image isn't working, and then when they revisit those main things that make an illustration work and think about the basics, they can kind of pinpoint why it's not working. But what I was going to say is people in a lot of illustration departments in art schools, for commercial work, when they're studying to become an illustrator, they tell you have to lock on to this unique style, this voice that's your own, and then you need to go out into the world and show everybody, this is how I solve problems with this very specific style. Well, I think that's great, and a lot of people do quite well with that approach. The problem with that is you do limit yourself in terms of the kind of work that you're going to get approached to do, right? Because let's say maybe everything you do is really punk and or maybe it's like it's really kind of metal. All right, so everything you do's got a lot of edge to it, and your color palette's always limited to like black and some neon stuff, and your images are really loud and aggressive. So then, but maybe there's this client that has a $5,000 budget to do a couple of drawings for a teddy bear collection, right? And they're going to look at your portfolio and be like, well, forget it. I'm not going to call that person, right?
I see.
So that's why my approach, and this has worked for me, and like I said, I freelanced for over 12 years, and my business continued to grow from day one. I think it's because I shared so many different styles of work that somebody could come to my website, look through the portfolio, and then find something that sort of spoke to them for their project, and then contact me and say, because I think we don't give art directors enough credit. We assume that they're not going to be able to be imaginative enough to think that we could do more than one thing. And that's also not giving illustrators enough credit. If you can draw well, you can do lots of different things, right?
Yeah, it's showing that you're able to have a versatile style, that you're able to do what people need, right? Yeah,
a little range is just a fantastic thing. I also do think, most of us, we get bored having to do the same thing over and over again. And it's fun to stretch your muscles and to go for something new, right? And sometimes it doesn't work, but that's fine because, use that time in your studio to play around, to try new things. And you do not have to put things in your portfolio that are specifically created for a client. My first job, when I was working as a web designer, got laid off when the big crash happened in 2001 or whatever it was. And I really, really desperately wanted to work in graphic design and do illustration for a design firm. And so what I did was I made fake work. I just created a fake series of wine posters, a fake series of packaging, and I don't remember what else, a couple other things. And that fake portfolio is what got me hired to be a graphic designer.
Oh, you've worked and done this before? You have all
Sure,
this
and
work?
I came in and admitted, I said, none of this stuff is real, but they didn't care. They want to see, can you do good work?
Yeah.
If you're only showing client work, a lot of the client work you do, especially when you're fresh out of school or you're just starting out, isn't very exciting or good work because you take a lot of stuff on that you just need to build your portfolio or just to get some money, right? And I had done a series of illustrations for a clothing, what was it? Kohl's, Kohl's department store. That I had to do these really boring drawings of how they would position their clothing in a certain section of the store.
Yeah.
It was like maternity wear or something. And that, I never put it in my portfolio because I thought, A, I hated drawing that. And B, how's that going to get me hired? And that's why I did the fake stuff. And the fake stuff got me hired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's showing that you can do a wide range of different things and people can see potential in the work that you do.
Yeah, and the show fake stuff that you want to draw in the future. That's also really key. So, if you're showing stuff that at the end of the day you'd be happy drawing, hopefully you get hired for some of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be putting a bunch of illustrations of cars in your portfolio if you hate drawing cars. That's not going to help you out.
Let's go back and look at Kyle's sketches.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get the body language here for this cat. He's going to be leaning on the bar here.
Whoa.
And trying to look cool. This is like, we're thinking like a James Bond kind of thing, right? The martini shaken, not stirred. That is what he orders, isn't it?
I think so.
God, I hope I didn't mess that up. Is it a martini?
I think so. It
Help
sounds
me out,
very
chat.
James Bondy, right?
I think
Yeah,
it's
let us know.
Vodka martini shaken, not stirred. That's the line I remember.
I like the body language in that cat. It's like
Yeah, that's
really cool,
So when you're drawing figures, think about weight. Like, what's the distribution of the weight? What happens if I move my one hip up and I have the weight on that foot? In this case, for example, the weight is really being on the right. It's on our left, but it's his right leg, right? That's kind of coming straight down. I'm just drawing a line right through it, like a line of action, right from the hip right here, straight down, and then that is really kind of taking care of holding up the body. That's why this other leg, can curve out this way, and really not have to be bearing the brunt of all that. And then think about what happens if you move one hip down, and what happens to the shoulder? How does the back curve away? What's cool about the body is every time one thing moves up, something else moves down. There's always a pinch and a stretch on either side. So, here is where we have a pinch, right? Where the waist is kind of bump. And then on this side, right here, we're getting a stretch. So the shape there of the torso is this and that, right? So here's our pinch and here's our stretch, right? And then it just kind of keeps carrying on down. Like, here's that leg, weight on this side. This is a little lighter.
So Anissa is asking if you go back and take drawing classes or anatomy classes, or if you're self-taught. So how do you know all of this about weight and...
I took tons of drawing classes in college. I went to a regular 4-year university, liberal arts school that had a nice art department. I did not go to an art school, but my professors there really stressed fundamental stuff like the principles of design. So again, shape and understanding relationships between large and small and those kinds of things. And then, we did color theory, which I'm still terrible at color, as you'll see if we get to color this thing. But I use a lot of cheats to make my color work, right? So I just did a ton of figure drawing. So to answer your question about anatomy, I did a lot of drawing the figure. And that to me was the most important thing I ever learned to draw, frankly. If you can draw the body well, you can draw everything.
I feel like if you understand the fundamentals of drawing a body, then you can kind of change that into your style and make it a little bit more cartoony or a little bit weird, and it makes sense because it looks kind of right, but you're adjusting in places that are okay to be adjusted, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right, and the best stylized drawings are made by people who understand how to draw a body realistically. Like they actually understand all the anatomy and have done it over and over again. And then they're able to push and pull that anatomy in a pleasing way, right? It's pleasing to the eye and in a believable way. And but they could not have really done that if it hadn't been for all that time they spent
practicing.
Yeah, practicing
learning.
from the model.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you do have to be in front of a live model anymore. In fact, there are these fantastic resources online for drawing the figure. And I'll mention a few of them if you want to write them down. Well, here I'll put my favorite, Proco, is absolutely incredible. Stan Prokopenko is the creator of Proko.com, and I believe he's been a guest, in fact, once here on a live stream a couple of years ago. But he has this phenomenal website where you can learn everything about life drawing, and there are paid tiers as well as free. The free content is out of this world, so if you really are on a budget and can't afford it, no problem. He's got the free stuff.
Free model sample pack, yeah.
Oh, everything. And if you go to his YouTube channel, he's got over, probably 200 free videos about figure drawing, drawing the head, drawing the hands, everything. So that's one resource. And then the other one is there's a YouTube channel called the Croquis Cafe, croquis being the French word for sketch, which I'll put here. There it is, Croquis Cafe. And that YouTube channel, remember, there's naked people here, so just be forewarned. Don't go jumping in there and say, oh no, Kyle's pointing me towards naked people. Well, yeah, that's what figure drawing is.
Yep. You have to understand the body in all of its forms.
So don't be shocked. But they have, I think it's weekly, maybe even more often than that, live models who come and pose for a 20-minute session. And you can just go to town with those drawings because it's such a great situation. They set it up like a real life drawing class.
Oh, it looks like it's time for our chat and win countdown. Sorry to interrupt, Kyle. So everyone, let's get in the chat. Tell us where you're from. Ask us any questions that you'd like to hear from Kyle. And let's start chatting. And then we'll see who wins 100 stickers from Sticker Mule.
And I guess I can't enter.
And we're back. Hello, everyone. Thanks for getting in the chat. Hey, Alba, Noel from Boston, Vancouver. Hi, Hugo. Jordan say, poor Kyle. Do you want some stickers?
That's
Philippines.
Okay. That's all right. I'll find a way to get those stickers.
Hello, everyone. LA, wow. From so many different places. Malaysia.
Malaysia? I've
Seattle.
Been there. Where are you in Malaysia? Are you in Kuala Lumpur?
Ireland. Texas. New York City, Orlando.
Cool.
Okay, congratulations, Lindy Ford. You just won 100 free stickers from Sticker Mule. Yay! Let us know what you're going to print out with those stickers. There's a ton of stickers to have.
That is.
Hamburg, Toronto, Argentina. We have so many international people here today. Canada, Washington. Wow, India. So we are here with Kyle Webster. You're using the Tilt-Terrific brush,
Tilt-Terrific,
right?
Yeah. It's a pencil that I just love because of its very natural pencil-y qualities.
South Korea, Brazil. Yeah, so we're drawing a cat, a Martini Bond, James Bond cat.
James Bond kind of, martini cat, because we looked up what were the holidays for June, and not really holidays, but people make up these days now for pretty much everything. And they had Bring Your Cat to Work Day was one of them, and the other one was National Olive Day. So we're putting the olive in the martini, and we're making this combination.
We're making that one day today.
Yeah. It's really kind of like just a character design exercise, which, I could always use practice on. And it gives me a chance to think about drawing a figure, but then also trying to make it sort of animal-y. Which is not that easy for someone like me because I don't spend a lot of time doing this kind of thing. So this is a fun exercise.
Yeah, I feel like once you get good at drawing figures, then you can move on to like other things that are still figures like animals.
Absolutely.
But it's a little bit different, right? You still have to understand anatomy, but in different forms.
And I am certainly by no means any kind of expert on cats or how cats are built. I'm making this a cartoony kind of a thing. But I know enough about structure, to make this drawing sort of feel like it works. And when I say structure, I'm just talking about the building blocks of the figure, the logic that goes into this, like what's underlying here. So I've got this. I'm trying to draw a little circle here so you can see. Maybe I'll do this on another layer. That might be helpful.
What about composition as well? Can you touch on that? I think that's also a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and so in this case here, I'm drawing there's a circle right there. Right? And this is more kind of like a shape like this. And
Jessica, no one knows how cats work.
that's so funny. One person did. His name was Steinlen. Steinlen's cat drawings are absolutely sublime. If you've never seen the cat drawings of Steinlen,
Wow.
please look them up. In fact, there are books you can buy that are just his cat drawings. Yeah. But so it's like, I'm just kind of like showing like a little skeleton kind of thing here. And I'm not sure if I should use another color. I can knock this back. That might help as well. Just for a moment here, I'll reduce the opacity of that layer. There. So now you can see
the structure of that.
Yeah.
It's very simple shapes, right?
Very simple shapes, you know, and I like things that, I like there to be a zigzag action. 1, 2, you know, 3, trying to make it so it's not just straight up and down, right?
There's some form, your eyes kind of glide through the piece, right?
Exactly. And if you want to look at a bigger line of action, this is what you get, right? So a nice S-curve. And that all just comes from gesture drawing with figures in school, having to draw figures in school. Like that would be the martini glass. I'm thinking about that. Here's this hand. Okay, or paw, I guess. Here's this hand. I don't want these to be exactly on the same level, right? So this is where the wrist breaks, and then the glass is up here, so we have a nice diagonal there.
Oh, got it.
It's diagonals create movement. They create a little action in your drawing. They make them less static, okay? So I'll get rid of that.
Do you use a default workspace?
Yeah, well, so for me, for Photoshop, I keep it pretty simple. You can see that I've just got my brushes here and my brush settings right next to them, so I can constantly be fidgeting and fooling with brushes. That's really my favorite thing to do, of course, is make brushes. And I do love drawing, but I just, once I get down that path of making a brush, I'll sit there for
Hours.
Hours and hours, days and days, creating a brush.
I see.
Just doing this, just moving these sliders around day in and day out, the shape dynamic scattering, all these little bits and pieces. I'll just spend days on that, and I don't get bored with that. I just love it. So I'm a freak. What is there to say?
Well, I think it's helpful because you've developed so many brushes that are very useful for everyone.
So you know what's exciting for me though is just to meet people and for them to say, oh, I used this brush or that brush and it kind of changed how I drew this or made this more efficient or that more efficient. And that just makes my day because, you know, I was selfishly making these things. I was making them for myself and didn't really think about other people finding them useful. So it was so great to know that they were helpful for other people. That was a really cool thing. I feel like somebody asked a question and I skipped out on it. Oh, composition.
Composition, yes.
Well, so in this situation, what we're doing really is kind of a floating illustration, a vignette. So I have the cat being the focus of our attention here, but I'm not really considering the environment too much. And I suppose, and I mean, I'm thinking about a bar here. This is like the bar surface, right, the top. And so I'm not really getting too heavily into composition here because it's a floater. It's an illustration that kind of floats. But if I were to, you know, try and think about composing this within that space of the rectangle, the kinds of things I would be thinking about would be asymmetrical balance. And maybe, you know, so let's just, as an experiment here, did everybody get the Proco.com and the Croquis Cafe references?
Yeah,
okay,
I think
I'll get
so.
rid of those.
Someone said, Caitlin said, my professor made the class download all of your brushes.
Oh, good. Well, that's a smart professor.
And Howard says, your brushes have helped countless artists. So
That makes me feel good.
you.
Thank you. So let's look at this. So here we have a vertical situation where now if I've put my center of attention, my focal point really is this cat, and it's dead center. So what could I do to break that up and make it more interesting? Well, one thing I'm doing here is create a little angle here for that bar, okay, as it recedes into the background there. And so if you think about perspective, these lines will eventually, if I were to just do this, which is one of the coolest things you can do with our crop tool in Photoshop, you can actually expand the size of your canvas. But these will eventually converge, right? And that's our vanishing point, and here's our horizon line. Okay, so if I were thinking about really designing this entire scene as a vertical illustration, I'd think, okay, well, here's one good thing I've got. I've got some diagonals here. And then this is actually incorrect now that I look at it, this bar top, because on the other side, I need to extend to another vanishing point. So this is 2-point perspective. And I could decide, well, where would that be? That could be a little closer. It could be this way. You know, it could be a little farther out. It depends on what you want to do. But that helps me to establish, I think I like this. That's pretty good.
Establish the correct perspective, so
Yeah.
it looks kind of right.
So, yeah, and oftentimes I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I'm not being so good about designing it correctly. But now that I've got that worked out, you know, what I could do then, if we're designing inside this rectangle and not doing a floating vignette or whatever, also that helps me understand, like, what should this angle of this foot be? I'm just gonna like really be blocky about it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what's behind a bar? Well, you're gonna have a bartender. I could, if I really was trying to make a more finished illustration with more stuff to look at in here, I could throw a bartender in there. You know, I think about scale. So like he's gonna be further back here in the background, maybe making a drink. So
Cool.
here's my kitty cat bartender, right? Making another cocktail for somebody. Whatever. And we could also have some bar stools. So, and those again, moving back in space, you want them to move back to that vanishing point. So
Got it.
here's one. The second one would be, you know, smaller because it's further back, right?
I think those vanishing points and the perspective help so much when you're building up something like this.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, if you don't do this, you run the risk of really screwing up. Unless you're, you know, I like I said, I do kind of eyeball these sometimes. Probably smarter not to. I'm usually a little overconfident when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I'll catch myself later having really screwed up. And then you have to go back and redo it, so it's not worth it, you know? Ellipses are important, being able to draw ellipses in perspective, you know, that's challenging. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to get into all that too much. But I wanted to mention another online resource that I love. For those of you who want to, you know, get into this kind of stuff. There's a guy whose his YouTube page is called Modern Day James.
Modern Day James.
Modern Day
Cool.
James. And he has at least a good 40 or 50 videos on his page.
Perspective?
Everything. Like drawing your primitives, they're called. Primitives are your pyramid shapes, your cubes,
got
these
it.
things in perspective, then assembling them into a more organic, you know, thing that you want to draw, whether it's a vehicle or an animal or whatever. And they are really easy to follow along with, and they're very well explained, and I think they're fantastic. So
Yeah, I think that's a great resource to start
Absolutely.
off understanding the building blocks of how you can start creating something like this.
yeah, Modern Day James, highly recommend it.
How do you define the position of your vanishing points? Curtis is, I think Noor is asking.
You know, they could, if you want to, if you set them pretty far out, you're usually kind of safe. Because then it'll look like you haven't distorted anything too much. The closer you move a vanishing point,
The more intense the
more extreme that perspective,
right?
and that's not that there's anything wrong with that. It can be a really cool effect. They use that all the time in comics for really dramatic, dynamic perspective.
Yeah.
But if you want to keep it safe and simple, just get your vanishing points pretty far out, and that's what I do. Now, of course, we can't go into a big, deep lesson in perspective, but for perspective lessons, you can pick up a lot of books
Yeah.
that are very, very good for explaining these things. I wish I could remember this guy's name. Something Inc. Dynamic Inc. or...
Yeah, I think just looking up like the basics of drawing in perspective will really help develop that understanding, and then it'll kind of just come naturally, right, as you start to understand the different vanishing
Yes.
points, 2-point, 3-point, 1-point perspective.
What really happens is your eyes get kind of trained to seeing mistakes. So you'll start to draw stuff and you'll be able to quickly catch yourself and be like, wait a second, something about this is wrong, you know? And you'll just do that more quickly and more quickly and more quickly as time goes on, because you start to understand these rules. I realized I had to move the table, the bar top down a little bit so his elbow would be in the right place. Anyway, yeah, so I think, I don't want to take too much time on the sketch. I think we're okay though, right?
Oh yeah, I think we are.
All right, so I'm trying to go pretty quickly here.
We've got another hour.
Oh, it should be enough time.
Yeah, so I think it'll be enough time.
To do a little inking and then maybe even throw some color in here.
Is that a bow tie? I love that.
Yeah, he's got the bow tie.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, the tux, the cummerbund.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's like classic James Bond
Very
look.
classy.
Yeah, he's always in almost every movie he finds himself in a casino gambling against
Dark,
the bad person.
Something like that.
Oh yeah, and he always orders that vodka martini.
So we have 45 minutes until our feedback for the design challenge. So everyone make sure to start drawing your lettering in Photoshop, and then we can take a look in 45 minutes.
Perfect. So here's our little martini. I'm just gonna get the triangle, right? That's the basic shape.
So Kyle, this is the 22-inch Cintiq.
Yeah, this is the 22-inch, it's called the 22 HD.
HD.
Which again is a good 6 or 7 years old, I'm sure, if not even older than that, perhaps. And I just think it's such a good machine. They really figured something out when they made this one. It's kind of like the 24 HD was great, but just a little too big, frankly.
Just a little better.
Yeah, this
right?
is just the right size. Although I love the new 16-inch Cintiq they just came out with. It's the most affordable Cintiq ever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a 16-inch Cintiq they came
great.
out with, and it's so
A little bit.
about that big, which is plenty of screen real estate, honestly. And it has the same resolution as this.
That's great.
One of the things I like about this, too, is it's not ultra HD. So something about that makes me feel more like I'm drawing on...
Yeah, it's more comfortable. It's not so crazy when you're looking at it, right?
Yeah, like if I were drawing this on one of the brand new Pro Cintiqs, we'd be zoomed in at like 250% just to make it feel like you're drawing at a regular scale because the resolution is
so intense, right?
Yeah. And that's just me. Maybe it's because I'm old and I don't want super crisp HD stuff. I was in somebody's studio recently and they had an exclusive... They had rights to photograph that new 8K TV. I think it's a Samsung or something.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, those are insane.
Well, yeah, it was crazy. It was on the wall, and I was looking at it, and I just thought, already with 4K, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
So it's double the resolution, but I can't tell what I'm looking at. So I think we're all just
I feel like with those, I just for some reason can't stop staring at it because it's just makes my eyes go crazy. I'm like, whoa, it's so crisp.
It's higher definition than real life.
Yeah,
which is weird.
Insane. It's weird.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right. When they first came out with Blu-ray, I remember being really distracted watching movies because you could see the makeup on people's faces.
Oh yeah, and you're just starting to stare too much at the people rather than what's going on.
And it took me out of the movie because I was like, wait, that's an actor. Because you can see the makeup, you can see, the detailing in the costumes. In a way you never saw before, and it kind of takes you out of the moment.
So Deborah's asking if it's important to start learning your drawing skills using paper and pencil or on a tablet. What do you think?
I do not think it matters. Honestly, makes no difference. What matters are the fundamentals. Are you learning about the things I mentioned earlier, like understanding how to draw your primitives, right? Your cubes and your cylinders and your pyramids and things like that. Can you draw those? Can you understand how they work in perspective? Can you look at a very complex thing and then simplify it down to the simplest statement possible, the larger shapes, the big shapes, and then work your way down to the details? If you remember how I started this sketch at the beginning, and those of you who didn't tune in at that point, this sketch started out, if I were to just knock this back for a second, like this. It was like a line here and kind of a...
Just basic shapes?
Yeah, it was really just kind of a silhouette with a couple of curvilinear lines, mostly straight lines. I had this idea of this hip being higher, this hip being lower, remember? And breaking the body right there, having a little bend. and then kind of understanding here's the head, almost like a glorified stick figure kind of approach.
Yeah.
Really, that's about all it was. So drawing that way helps me on the outset, right? All right, so we'll go back to here. And I did kind of take it far now to where we're actually adding other figures. We've got the cat in the background, and I could go back to where I was, which was I was really just kind of going to do a vignette of this cat, this James Bond cat.
How long does it usually take you to do a piece from start to finish? Does it
vary?
vary?
Yeah, it varies so much. If you have my site still up there, there's a one I did of a frog on a bicycle at the very top. That was a 9-hour drawing. Yeah, so that top left one, that's like a 9-hour, exercise because it's a lot of thinking, and then the color process took me a long time trying to make those colors work and feel harmonious, and then the detail in the trees and things like that. But then by contrast, the two guys sitting there on the planets, that was an editorial job. I only had about a half a day to do it, so that's like a 3 or 4 hour job.
So it just depends, right?
Yeah, it depends on the deadline, depends on
how much time you want to spend.
Yeah. Also, it depends on the budget. So let's be honest about this. I mean, sometimes somebody approaches you, they want some work, they don't have a lot of money. You do want to do the project, but you don't want to cheat yourself out of what's a fair fee, right? So there were times where I had to do spot illustrations that I just had to do quickly because the money I was getting paid didn't justify my spending a whole day or 2 days on it.
That makes total sense, yeah.
And these are business decisions that you make as an artist, and they're hard, because you do want to make something the client likes, you want them to call you back. At the same time, you have to respect your own time and make it worth your while.
Got it.
So that can be tricky, All right, so I was thinking we would have, some indication here of the bar in the background here, and there could be lights on the ceiling, who knows.
Yeah, Christina, that cat does look very snazzy.
We
love that body language.
That's another thing. When you draw a lot of figures, you do start to kind of really pay attention to stuff like that. How does somebody pose when they're trying to project a certain attitude, or right?
Yeah, I think you have to think about all of these things to get something to look real, right?
Exactly.
In a way.
It makes a huge difference. And people who are comic book artists, I mean, they're so good at this. They are always thinking about body language and facial expressions and
telling a story as well.
Yeah, through those poses and through the drawings, right? If you have a character who, they just lost a loved one or something horrible, and you draw them, and the only way you know how to draw people is with a big grin and sort of just always having this positive kind of body language, that's not going to work for your story, right?
So Adam's asking you to mention where the brushes are that you can download. I think just talking through that one more time.
Sure. Here's your brushes panel in Photoshop, and you've got all your brushes in there. And what you do is you go up to this little drop-down menu at the top right corner, and you come down to Get More Brushes. That's as simple as that. And when you go there, it's going to ask you to log in, and which I've already done. So now that I've logged in, I can... I get to this page. It'll always have the latest brush update at the top. So here we have the winter 2019 brushes, and summer brushes are coming soon. And then here are all the brush sets you can download, tons and tons to play with. And when you download a set, it's as simple as you just click download, and wherever it goes, just double click it. And when you double click it,
it'll appear
immediately load it into Photoshop in a folder, nice and convenient.
That's great.
It's really cool.
And how do you get this little window to show up, or does that always
You can
appear?
choose not to have it there.
Okay. I think someone was asking about that earlier, that tilt window.
Yeah,
right?
and what is it called? There's a name for it. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I've done in the past. I've closed it, and then if I wanted it back, I could get it. And I don't remember how I did that.
There's a way somewhere, guys.
I bet someone in the chat can tell us because people know these things.
Yes.
I know a lot about Photoshop, but I don't know everything because it's such a beast. It's a huge program.
Jonathan's asking, do you do all of your drawing on one layer, and when do you decide, or do you to clean up lines, etc.? Do you do rough work on multiple layers or all at once?
Rough is always on one layer. And then for others, so for the rest of it though, it depends on the assignment. If it's a more painterly kind of thing, I usually just work on one layer to get things to interact with each other brush-wise, and that's just fun for me. But, for a lot of client work, when I want to be able to make changes easily to an image when things are all said and done and I've sent it to them, I will work on separate layers. So I'll have like the color could be broken into several layers underneath the line art. Even the line art could be in several layers. In this case, I most likely would have the cat on one layer, the bar on a layer, maybe the bartender somewhere else, in case the client says, we don't like the bartender, or move the bartender down to the left, or that
Different
kind of thing.
pieces separated just in case you want to
Exactly.
change some things, right?
Yeah, the great Christoph Niemann, his quote about digital art is that it takes the traditional process and makes it more flexible and reversible, right?
That's a great
Which
great
is pretty
quote.
cool, yeah. It's a great way of summarizing why digital art is so amazing.
Many more possibilities.
All that flexibility really makes a difference. So, I'm thinking now about, like, what would this be? Maybe it's a lamp hanging down or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
cool.
So, but then in the interest of time, I think what I'll do is we'll crop this back to where it was.
Do you use reference images, Kyle, when you're working?
Oh, yeah, all the time. All the time. If it's something I haven't drawn before, and I'm just making up this bar, the bar could probably be a lot better. Right now it's just a block, right? It's a square shape. Real bars are going to have other things. I mean, they're going to have, like, for example, that little...
The ledge for your feet.
Yeah, that
Sometimes
thing.
they
So I
have,
think
like,
about
hooks,
adding that.
right? For
Right.
your jacket.
There's all kinds of stuff.
It's up to how much you want to add in detail, right?
Exactly. I try and keep things fairly simple, so I try and add just enough for people to get the context, right? But, something like for this bar, we could add a little detail like this, like a wedge there that's supporting the
top of it, right?
the top of the bar, yeah, exactly. Right, and maybe that comes out here, and maybe this one doesn't have one, or this one has something else, like these little pieces here or something. These are decisions that you make based on observation. So, you go to places such as a bar, which is where I spend about 90% of my time. Just kidding. And you look around you, and that's the thing about being an artist is be extra specially observant,
You have to look, right?
Yes,
So that you know how things are supposed to look and what to include.
Next
and then
time,
it makes it more realistic, right?
And those details matter, and people will notice a difference. If you're in a plane, right, pay close attention to how the plane really is designed on the inside. Like, look all around you. Look at the walls. Look at the ceiling. Look at how the chairs look. What makes them airplane seats? Those kinds of things. Or if you're in a grocery store, pay attention to what the aisles look like and what the food looks like there. And these kinds of things, the more you draw in a sketchbook or the more you just do daily observational drawings, the more you build up this library of information.
So Kyle is using the Tilterific brush.
Yeah, it's just a pencil, and I can tilt it on its side, which I'll do right now. One thing I like to do is I like to increase the size of it. So use your bracket keys on your keyboard. The bracket keys look like this, okay? So the right bracket key here will make things bigger. The left bracket key will make things smaller, okay? Left bracket key, excuse me. So what I do is I just tap my bracket key, make my Tilterific pencil really big, and now I can do stuff like this. I can just
shading.
Do some, I'm thinking about, okay, this is going to be dark, right? So I'll just shade that in and look at my values. Okay, like this is all one big dark shape.
Cool.
Yeah.
Christina's asking what your process is for ideating and coming up with ideas to draw.
Oh gosh.
Because you have so many different pieces and there's so many different styles, and how do you come up with what to do?
I think because I've been drawing my whole life, I never really run out of stuff to draw. I just think, what would I like to draw today? And if I don't have an idea, one thing I've found is pretty effective actually, and you should all try this, I think, is try just drawing a shape on your canvas, okay, or on your paper or whatever, and see what it reminds you of. And what I mean is, for example, if I do this, okay, just do that. And then just look at it and say, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? What am I looking at? Okay. And eventually you could be like, well, okay, maybe there's a head here, right?
Whoa.
Maybe there's a hood here.
That's cool.
Right? And now I've got a figure. So here's a starting point, right? And now, okay, what's that person doing? Well, now I can be like, oh yeah, there's an arm there. Okay. and here's a walking stick or something.
Yeah, you kind of just go from and just keep going, right?
Yep. Like, just look at, what does it make you think of? Does it make you think of something?
Mm-hmm.
And
It's like that idea of like building up from a story, right?
right, shapes always remind you of something. So mine almost always wind up being sort of figurative in nature, just because I think it's what I like to draw. But that's where we go, you know. So now I've got something there, and I can say, okay, that's pretty cool. You know, maybe I want to do this and get that carrying on down here. And now I've created something as a starting point to either go forward with, or if I don't like it, just start all over again, right? It's just a drawing exercise. I do this with my students where I teach, which is it's the sketch game where somebody will just make a doodle on the page and hand it to somebody else, and it's really dead simple, like more simple than what I just did.
That does sound like a fun game.
It is. Like,
And
if I go like that and just hand it to the next person to my left, they look at it and they go, oh, I don't know.
That's a good game to play with yourself too, right?
Yeah. And the cool thing is you can do this. You can, rotate it, right? So if I do that, okay, now I've rotated it this way. Oh, now I see a different shape. Okay, so, since we're drawing cats, whatever, maybe that's what I see. Right?
Dune's saying the most difficult part of drawing for him is the face and capturing the look of the model. Do you have any tips or experience during your learning process for that? Faces are hard.
Yeah, so here's the thing about drawing a face. If you take, I guess I should save this, huh, Marie, just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
Cat bar. I think first it's important to not tell yourself these things. Don't say to yourself, drawing a face is hard, drawing a face is hard. Because you're right off the bat, then you're making it hard, you're hurting your confidence, okay? And that's not helpful language. And this is another thing I do with the students too, is if they come to me and they say, I can't draw this or I can't draw that, my answer to them is, what can you draw? And they say, well, I can draw fill in the blank. And I say, well, guess what? The approach you use to drawing whatever that is, if it's a bicycle or I don't care what, you have to use exactly that same approach when drawing a face. And so I believe that if you learn how to use measurement and angles and thinking about things in terms of when you're seeing something that you want to draw, thinking in terms of alignment and angles and measurement and proportion and these things, you're breaking down whatever you see into a completely different, you're seeing it differently, excuse me.
Yeah, it's like a different task, right?
Yes.
Then this is a face and I need to draw a face. It's like you need to think about these other criteria, right?
For example, you don't think to yourself, I'm going to draw a nose now. Because as soon as you do that, you might fall back on...
what you know of noses
right.
to look like.
And there's a sort of that's a nose. Like we think, oh, okay. And so as soon as you do that, you've already ruined
limited yourself, right?
Yeah. Or people say, I'm going to draw an eye, and then they think it's like an almond shape with a circle, right? These symbols, for what we understand them to be, we have this library of symbols in our heads. They hold you back from really being observant and seeing the actual shape. So depending on the angle of someone's head, an eye could be more like this shape, right? And so that is not the kind of shape you're going to be
thinking of immediately, right?
No, like if I'm thinking about an eye and I think of that almond shape, it's going to make it hard for me to do this.
Oh, got it.
Okay, so it's not the best eye, but you get the idea. The shapes I'm drawing here are different from what you have in that symbol library for yourself, right? So this is an eye at a certain angle, and if you were to observe that eye and just draw the shapes that you see and think about how long is this, how short is this, what aligns with what, and so on. And so if you're talking about a face, it's really about the larger relationships. So I've got a head, okay, and here's like the cranium, okay, and it's kind of like this squished sphere, okay, like a 3/4 view here. And then I've got this jaw shape that hangs down from that sphere, right? Remember, there's symmetry to keep in mind. So if you take that head shape and just divide it in half, it makes it easier to put things in the right place. And then you can align stuff like the eyes and the brow and the nose and the line for the mouth and the jaw. And eventually, when you start to see these relationships from big to small, it makes it easier, right, to start to get... And when I talk about alignment, I mean like what's under the pupils here, pretty much the corners of your mouth, okay? And all this stuff, you know, if you go to the Proco videos or look at Bern Hogarth's book about drawing the human head, or really anybody, Frank Riley, there are so many different ways to look this up and learn these things, but drawing a head is all about these big relationships, alignment, angles, simplifying things, okay? And I think that's what makes the process doable. Same for anything else you're drawing. So if I were drawing a bicycle, right, I'd be thinking about big shapes.
It's breaking it down to the shapes and the relationships between those shapes, right?
Yeah, a wheel, you know, another wheel. How far apart are these two wheels? Like, pay attention to stuff like that. How big are they relative to the frame, right? Which part of the frame is where? By the way, I don't draw a lot of bikes, so let's see how this goes. You know, but you know what I'm saying? So like that's the general sort of shape I'm trying to figure out. Then I get in there and start doing who knows what, like the gears and blah, 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 and pedals and whatnot, right? But it's no different than this. This is the same thing. Like these are aligned, right? This angle is different from that angle, or maybe they're the same. I have to go look at a bike to find out. Here's a parallel line. This angle might be similar to this angle, right? What's the height here? Look at the height of the total. You know, the bike wheels take about a little more than half, right? So think about those kinds of relationships, you know, A to B, and start breaking things down that way. When you do that with figures or anything else you want to draw, you can do just as well. So.
Wow, those are some really great tips.
I hope so.
Anyone else have any more questions? I saw one about getting clients. What are your thoughts on that?
That's changed a lot. When I started out, I did postcard mailings and I sent a lot of emails. And one thing I did that I don't even know if you can really do it anymore, if people want you to do it, but I did tons of phone calls. I would just call people out of the blue. That's awesome. And I'll tell you how I cheated, so you can cheat like me, okay? I did tons of cheating. So the first job I ever got for Entertainment Weekly, the magazine, was I called them, and I got the main switchboard, and I knew the name of the art director because in the masthead of the magazine, you can look at the name, right?
Yes.
And his name was Eric, can't remember his last name, sorry.
Eric something.
Eric, let's just call him Eric Cat. Okay, so I said to the switchboard operator, I said, hi, I was just cut off. I was on the phone with Eric, whatever. I just lied. And she was like, okay. And she connected me right through to him. And he's like, great. Hello. And I just said, yeah, hi, my name's Kyle. I want to draw for you, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if you have 2 seconds right now, you can look at my website. And I just told him the website address on the phone.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
He looked at it. He's like, oh, wow, good. And then I said, yeah, do you have anything for the next issue? Like, you can just be super bold and don't be afraid to don't be shy. And he's like, yeah, actually, I need someone to draw 4 portraits. It's a rush job, blah, blah, blah. And that was my first job for Entertainment Weekly. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, just putting yourself out there.
Yep.
I mean, what are you going to lose, right?
Nothing.
Might as well try.
If they hang up on you, just try again in a month, and eventually something will happen. But I did a lot of cold calling, and I think art directors were kind of surprised by it because most people were contacting them through email and stuff like that.
And you're kind of just being forward about it, right?
And here's a fun one. This is another way to cheat. What I would do for art directors, I hope the art directors out there watching this aren't going to hate me for giving away all these things because they're going to get bombarded with emails now, but they don't give away their email addresses a lot anymore. And so what I would do is find the editor's email address, because that's almost always published in the magazine.
Okay.
And then I would send an email like this. I would compose it, and let's say it's Eric, okay? His name's Eric Cat. I would do eric.cat@ew.com, Eric_cat at cat e.
Just try.
I would do all the possible combinations of that person's name, but they would be in blind carbon copy, BCC.
Yeah. So other people wouldn't be able to see, right?
Yes, and so one of them would get through. because you're bound to get
Yeah.
one of those to go through. And whichever one goes through that person, they don't know you also tried sending it to like 100 other people in that same
Yeah.
whatever. And that
Wow.
worked for me many times.
These are awesome tips. Yeah, just finding out the name, just sending them, calling them,
Yep.
talking about your work. I think those are all really good things
Yeah, if you
to
don't have
do.
the direct line, call the main switchboard, say you got cut off, or say I was in town and met with so-and-so recently to show them my work and I was just following up. Do you think the switchboard people care? They are not going to be like,
Yeah.
no, you can't talk to these people.
Yeah.
They're there. They want to like look at their phone and look at Instagram
Yeah.
just like everybody else.
They're like, okay, yeah, whatever.
They're not policing these situations in any major way, especially not at the magazines anymore.
Kyle with the wizard level of finesse. Yes. And
Is that finesse or is that just like underhanded, anyway.
life hacks, right?
Life hacks, right. You have to do this stuff. I mean, you really got to get creative. And if you feel confident about your work and you feel like you're ready to do this and you've got the quality, the next step is getting the right people to look at it. And sometimes you got to be a little sneaky to get that to happen. But one thing I'll say is another way to get jobs, and this has always been the best for me, is to go to see people in person. So go to conferences, for example. I know that conferences are expensive. I realize that they're cost prohibitive for a lot of people. I would look at it as an investment in your career. Meeting art directors
Making
face to
connections
face.
are like so worth it, right?
It's so worth it. All the best jobs I've ever had have come from face-to-face interaction with
Yes,
somebody.
yes.
And there have been times where I've been sending people incessantly emails and whatnot, and they don't even give me the time of day. And then I meet them in a conference.
And it's so different, the impression that you get, right?
Of course. And they give you work.
Yeah.
So at least that's worked for me, and I think people should try that. Learn how to make small talk. If you find someone at a conference and all you want to talk about is work, they're bored. Ask them about their family, ask them where they grew up, ask them about their hobbies, those kinds of things, right? Learn how to be making conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot to do with confidence and building up your confidence. Do you have any tips on that? I saw a question earlier about how do you sound confident but not arrogant?
Oh, I think that's not so hard. I think there's a huge difference between bragging and just honestly stating what you do. I'm an illustrator. I've worked for these people. I'd really like to work with you. Here's some samples of my work. Hope you like them. And if so, let's collaborate on something.
Yeah, you don't have to take it to the boastful level,
No,
right?
no. But again, of course, that is a lot easier in person too. I have to say,
Yeah.
When you're writing an email, it's kind of hard. Like, what do I write? What do I say? But when you're face to face with someone, and I know a lot of people have social anxiety, and it's hard. They don't want to go and do these things. And for that, I would say, there are a couple things you can do. Read books about it. Read books about how to get more confident, how to be more comfortable around people. I would also say, don't forget, all these people you want to talk to are regular people just like you with just as many thoughts running through their head about whether their breath stinks or, do I have something hanging out of my nose? Or, you think these people are, you look up to people or you think they're special. They're just like you. They have just as many hang-ups and insecurities as you and everybody else. We're all humans. And it's nice to just interact with another human
And think of it
yeah.
at that basic human level, right?
We're all just people. If I were to go meet Steven Spielberg, I wouldn't be intimidated in the least. He's an amazing filmmaker, but he's a guy
Yeah.
who had a thing he wanted to do.
And he did it.
He
and
did
he did
it.
a good job,
right?
right?
And a lot of what he did was based on luck and circumstance. Of course, he was very driven and he has a lot of talent and all that, but I don't think I would be fawning all over him and not knowing what to say. I would just ask him about, what are you working on now? And are you having fun with it? And how are your kids? And
Yeah.
are you going on vacation anywhere soon? Well, what's your favorite place in the world? Or ask questions like that. Get people talking about themselves and about what they like. And that's a good conversation.
Yeah, that's a really great tip.
You know that comedian Russell Brand? He's got this he's recently turned into a sort of spiritual guru.
I know. I watched one of his stand-ups. I'm like, what is going on with him?
Yeah, now he's got on his YouTube channel, he posts these almost daily videos where he just talks about all the things we all struggle with, like anxiety and depression or sadness or not knowing what our purpose is and all these lovely things. And I recommend going just listen to him for a while.
Yeah.
It's very soothing, makes you feel good, and you realize everyone's in the same boat. Okay, and people do want to help each other. If you've got good work, someone will throw you a bone and someone will give you a chance. And when they do, that's when it matters. That's when you got to not mess it up. So then the pressure is on, right?
Yeah.
Take it seriously. If someone gives you that opportunity, make the most of it and surprise them with how good it is. Anyway, I'm doing a lot of sketching here while we're talking because it's easy for me to do that while I talk. I'm not having to think too hard. But I should probably move on.
So right now, Kyle is using the Tilterific brush, and you can get that in one of the brush packs, right?
It's in the Mega Pack, yeah.
Mega Pack.
It's in the drawing box category.
On adobe.com.
Yeah. And I don't suppose I need all these details here. I could probably do away with some of these.
And we have 15 minutes until we're going to look at some feedback, or we're going to give some feedback and look at the challenges that you've submitted.
Oh, maybe I should do some inking then.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
All right. I don't know if people are getting bored with the pencil. Chat, please tell me if you're sick of me pencil drawing here.
I don't think so. They keep asking what this pencil is.
Oh, well then never mind.
Yeah, but let us know if you want to see some inking, color.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good time.
Move on to something else here.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow I thought maybe I'd draw something completely different. So if that's the case, I should probably try and get this to some level of finish. Although I did, I kind of went nuts and I had to draw an environment and all that kind of stuff. And my original plan was just to draw the cat. Yeah.
More details.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Because we were talking about how to do that and why that, it just came up and this is what happens with these chats. Everything's kind of organic, right? It just happens.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. Rachel's saying, I don't get bored. I could watch all of this all day. So don't
Cool,
worry about
okay.
the boredom.
Oh, good. That's a relief.
And they're just enjoying the process. Thank you, Jordan. So Nicole's asking what size canvas you start with.
Oh, it depends. I mean, if it's for a job, it depends on what they tell me. They're going to tell me exactly how big it needs to be. I always get that information up front. In this case, I'm just, we're just fiddling around here. So let's see. This is pretty small. It's 1700 by 2205. So let's see what that is in inches. Yeah, 5.5 by 7.5 roughly. Not very big.
Not crazy.
Nah. No. And you'll see, I mean, when I draw in fresco on Friday, I can draw on a much bigger canvas, and it'll be super fast because, with the way the iPad works and everything being run off the GPU, if I'm saying that right.
I think so.
It's just amazing how little lag there is. It's pretty impressive.
So what is the resolution that you use, Kyle, when you draw?
Again, that depends on the project. So if somebody wants me to do something for print, I always do 300 DPI. I have friends who do 450, friends who do 600. Wow. Jamie Zollers, who's a fantastic children's book illustrator and writer. I know she draws at 600 DPI, like these massive, like the size of this at 600. So, I mean, we're talking like, 10,000 pixel wide. She just loves to get down into like tons of little details, and she likes to be able to print them big if necessary, and that's just how she works. So, but the main thing is to get the resolution right for the client for what they need.
Yeah.
I try not to really overdo it because I want to be able to work fast, and if I make a huge canvas that's bigger than I need, I'm going to deal with more lag, especially when I'm painting, right? So. Yeah,
so it looks like people want to see some inking and some color. They're definitely not sick of this, but they want to see
all right, let's do that
part of the process.
Let's do that. All right, so we'll, let's see, I think I should throw another.
Yeah, so Friday, Kyle's going to be on Adobe Live as well. And we're here again tomorrow. I think we're going to draw something different here in Photoshop. But Friday, Kyle's going to be on Better Know a Brush, looking at Adobe Fresco, which is the new drawing and painting app on the iPad that's coming out this year.
Correct.
So Kyle helped design that with us, gave us tons of great feedback on all steps of the process, and has curated an awesome set of brushes in Fresco. So we'll look at that on Friday.
Yeah, and of course, we can talk about the fact that you can import your brushes into Fresco. So, if you're not interested in the brushes that are in there, although I'm sure you'll like them, I think they're really fun. I tried to make it a great collection. If you're not interested in all that, you can always bring your own custom brushes in. We have artists who have been working with us testing it, such as Carla Ortiz,
Sid
Weiler,
Paulo Rivera, Pascal Campion,
Tommy Lee Edwards. These people have all imported their own brushes, and they're playing with them in there, and they love it. So Okay, we'll move on to some inking then. So I just put some stuff here. I don't know what I'm doing now. I really wasn't planning on doing an environment. You have to think about an environment. You can't just kind of like invent it too easily. And I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to making all this stuff look believable, but it's going to have to do for now.
Yes, Riaz, Gemini changed to Fresco. Gemini was like the code name, the project name, and now that we're releasing it soon, we're calling it Adobe Fresco. So that's the official name.
Yes.
But it is the same as Gemini. It's the same application, it's just a different name.
Yeah, and I love that name. And when everything's new and someone names it, people sometimes are going to like it or not going to like it, but I think it's a great name.
I think so too. So we just announced the name this week, so that's why I'm sure a lot of you have not heard of it because it was just released like yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, today's Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
so Monday they made the announcement at Cannes in France. That was a horrible pronunciation, I should say. For anybody here from France?
Yes, let us know.
People? Any French people here? I can speak some French, but I'm not going to bother. Madly in love with the French language. All right, so many options for inking. I don't even know where to start. Let's see. I think I'll keep it simple. And I'll use Mr. Natural, I think. Let's go down. No, maybe the fountain pens. Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, how do you decide on a brush when you start this?
This is a problem, huge problem. I don't know. I'll start drawing with something and say, how does that feel? Mm-hmm. And if I like it, I'll just keep going with it. So don't forget, if you're inking in Photoshop, and especially if you're not using a Cintiq, if you're using a regular tablet that is you can't see the screen, right, that you're drawing on, take full advantage of the smoothing that we have, the line smoothing. This is going to make your life so much easier. So just as an example, if I try and draw this kind of a curvilinear sort of a, mark, okay? Well, that's fine, and I'm used to drawing digitally, and I kind of understand what I'm doing. But if I were doing this on a tablet, not really looking, seeing what I'm able to see here,
that disconnect is hard.
Very difficult. I mean, your brain is really having to work overtime. So I would pump up the smoothing. So here I've now set it to 21. And it might be hard for you to tell, but it's very smooth. I'll bump it way up to 60. And you can see it kind of hangs back behind my stylus, and I can get super, super smooth, really lovely. And then that's what's great about this is if you need to make a big curvilinear line, right, you can zoom out. And the farther you zoom out, the more you can draw with your elbow, right, and your shoulder, draw with your shoulder. And if I have the smoothing turned on, so like I can just go boom, like that. And look at this, it's absolutely perfect all the way through. Super smooth, super easy to do. So that's another pro tip for you is zoom out when you have to do bigger lines. If they have to be smooth, zoom out, and then your hand isn't having to move as far, okay? So I could do stuff like this, okay? But this is a big canvas. If I were to try and do this now, put the smoothing back down, imagine trying to draw this while I'm zoomed in, right?
Yeah,
I'm having to slow way down and be like, oh gosh, how am I, oops, and then I get, nope, that's not as good. Nope, you can see the problem. Okay, so zoom out and take advantage. All right, so let's see, I'll probably keep my smoothing at about a 9 here.
Hey Programmer PC, I saw your question about XD and Photoshop and which is better to use for designing. There's actually a stream after this in XD, so I think that's a great question to ask in that stream, and you can see what those designers think about using XD versus Photoshop when, and I think they're going to be talking about design systems as well later today after this live stream. So what is your smoothing set to right now? It's at 0.
Oh, that's, yeah, I switched brushes. I went to Mr. Natural. I just wanted to try some of these because I haven't drawn with them in a while, frankly. They're all good for different things. The Mr. Natural, a lot of comics artists use it because you might not be able to tell from this distance, but if I zoom in, it's got some tooth to it, like that. So it's kind of a natural sort of a line to it. Good taper. Things like that.
So we have about 6 minutes until we're going to look at the design challenge entries. So make sure to get into the Discord and put your work in the design feedback channel, and we'll take a look at that. And the prompt is to create some fancy lettering in Photoshop with, I think, smudge brushes.
Yes, so Kathleen did some pretty cool stuff this morning, and I was in the room getting this Cintiq all ready to go, making sure my brushes were here. What's that?
Overhearing a little bit of what was going on.
Yeah, I was hearing what she was doing, but I was kind of not really able to follow it. It sounded very cool, so I need to go and do the playback on that later today so I can see what she did.
So when you start inking, you're kind of going over some of the lines, right, that you have laid down already, but you're being selective about which ones?
Very selective, very selective. And then you'll see me undo a lot because I'm picky, and I need to get it just right. And that's something that, depending on also how far away I am. When I say that, what I mean is like how much have I zoomed in. I get more and more picky. I think it's dangerous to zoom in too far when I'm inking because I start to work on details that don't matter.
I see. Yeah, we love those chunky brows on that cat. Looks good.
Yeah, Sean Connery had really heavy eyebrows. Here's what I like about digital drawing. I'll just move that.
Oh,
nice,
perfect.
better.
Yeah.
Cheating.
I don't think that's cheating. I think that's taking advantage, right?
Yeah, you're just taking advantage of the tools that you have. I mean, look at the artists in the 70s and 80s were using what was called a Lucy machine. I'm sure nobody out there knows what that is, but if you do, please
let us know.
Yeah, a little shout would be fun. I'd love to know if somebody knows when I say Lucy, someone knows what that is. That'd be cool. But there were these machines you used for tracing. And, they were constantly having to do comp work in the studio that required quickly being able to render cars or whatever for various advertising jobs, right? And so they would just get a good photo of the car.
And then you would trace over it?
Just use the Lucy machine. It would project it down onto your paper, and you would trace it. And that was totally fine. It was just one of the tools that was available. They were on a fast deadline. They needed to do these things quickly,
Noel Campbell says, I think I know what that is.
You can look it up, too.
Maybe sounds familiar.
Yeah, people are still selling them on eBay and stuff. And one of my friends in town where I live still has one. He was one of the few artists in the whole country who was allowed to, by contract, paint and draw Joe Camel, which was this Camel cigarettes character that was used to market Camel cigarettes.
Got it.
And I mean, eventually I think Joe Camel went away altogether because he was kind of appealing to kids, and they're like,
nope, not a good idea.
No, yeah. And so anyway, he used that Lucy machine to death when he had to draw the cigarette boxes, because they had to do these really hyper-realistic airbrush illustrations, which if anybody knows what airbrushing is not easy. And super time-consuming.
Wow, I bet.
Yeah, and to speed up the process, he would trace stuff with Lucy. And all of his pals did too. I mean, that's what people did to make it doable. Otherwise, you'd be spending weeks just trying to paint something.
Yeah. Wow. Linda's asking, Kyle, when you draw on regular paper, do you try to pinch and zoom like me?
I was drawing at a comic convention just a few days ago, and found myself doing all kinds of things with my fingers that weren't working, because I was so used to drawing in a digital environment, which is really a bad sign. I need to draw more with traditional stuff. And when I'm teaching, everything I do is charcoal on paper. But now I'm only teaching in the spring semester every year. So I'll go, 7 or 8 months.
Without drawing on paper.
Exactly.
And then you're like, what do I do here?
Yeah, and I get to class, and the only class I teach in the spring now is portraiture class. So the model will be set up, and I'll have charcoal in hand, and I really have to
zooming.
It's bad. It's bad. There's no undo, but charcoal's very forgiving. You can work it to death, so that's nice.
So Jonathan's asking, how do you deal with coloring in areas like the left side where there's a gap in the line near the whiskers? Do you kind of just leave that open in these areas?
Oh yeah, no, I'll just color behind it. So I'll show you too. I mean, I think I should have enough time to do a little bit of coloring here. I won't finish all the inking. I'll get some inking done, just so you see how it looks. And then I'll go ahead and put some color in. So if you could help me, let's see, it's 10:58. We have until 11:30.
Yep, so we'll take a look in a minute at the design submissions, and then we'll come back for a few minutes at the end to keep
Perfect.
drawing. And then tomorrow we can take a look at where we left off, but I think we're going to start on something new tomorrow.
Yeah, we can do both. I can look at this a little bit and just kind of maybe do a couple of things to it. I think people want to see me do something different day to day. We spend a lot of time on this kitty, so. Or, maybe people want to see it more. I don't know.
Yeah, we can ask tomorrow and see what you guys think.
Because there are plenty of things to show from this point forward. There's not just the inking, but like you mentioned, there's coloring. Mm-hmm. There's also just this decision about, well, how do you want to draw something? Do you want it to be line and flat color? Do you want it to be more painted? There's so many ways I could have gone with this. The sketch is the sketch. But after that, it's like, well, now what do you do? I mean, there's so many choices to make.
Mm-hmm. And what brush is this?
This is the Mr. Natural 2017 brush.
Okay.
There are at least 3 Mr. Naturals. The original was a free brush that I made. That was my most downloaded brush ever.
Wow.
Over like 400,000 or 500,000 of them were downloaded. The Mr. Natural. Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like it's time to take a look at the design challenges. So we're gonna look at the channel, the design feedback channel. So the daily challenge today, guys, was to create digital letting art with smudge text and brushes. So let's see. I think this is also from, there was another challenge of photo retouching as well. This is cool. 2 images, glance. I really like this one.
Let's see. Oh, neat. So I wish I had seen how they were how they were making these, because the smudging, I'm not seeing the smudging in there. I'm wondering, where does the smudge come in? I see the word glance, and then I'm looking at the image.
Let's see. That might be for the portrait challenge. I'm not sure. Let's see. Here's another one with.
Oh yeah, I see some smudginess there.
With the letters dance, and the brush smudging. That's cool. Do you have any feedback for these, Kyle?
Well, that's a nice composition. The shape that you're looking at again is not super symmetrical or boring, right? Because of the way that fabric is all moving around. I'd say that with the type, it would be nice for it to feel more like it was part of the image. Like, I think one of the things with type that's difficult is to you have to make a decision with your design. Does the type sit on its own and somehow complement or contrast with the image in a really easy, interesting way? Or does it all kind of feel like it's part of the same big shape, or is it stylistically treated in a way that makes it... Now, of course, we're using colors here that are similar. That helps. There's something about this big shape, this silhouette of the person with the fabric, that is a kind of a chunky, heavy shape. And so one thing you could do to contrast that is use type that's more delicate or more quiet, right?
Yeah, I think that would help balance the piece a little bit more.
Another cool thing you could do is the way that the fabric is kind of coming off from her hand is with the lettering, you could actually use the smudge to, for example, the N, the second, the right side of the N, and I think these are called ascenders or descenders. I don't know my type that well. Sorry, folks. But to pull that N up and around in the same, to echo some of the shapes of the fabric, you could do that with some of the letter forms. You could have them be more organic and have parts of them pull away and create something that is echoing.
Connecting it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's great feedback. Okay. Let's see, here's another one. Hello, summer. Oh, very summery. I like that. Another use of smudge text.
Looks like the pineapple is in the water because are those some ripples that I see? And that were those ripples added by hand, I wonder?
Yeah, that looks...
Kind of looks like they might have been.
it.
That's a real... Yeah, so that smudge technique is interesting. I'll have to look that up. But I do like that. Yeah, nice colors. The purple is all by itself. And so what I would say with this one is, can you cheat and throw purple into the shadows of the pineapple?
Yeah.
Or throw some
or
purple into the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly it's not just this color that sits all by itself and doesn't have anywhere I can go elsewhere in the picture to find it again.
Yeah, so it doesn't stand on its own so much.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one, 9 days, Photoshop camp. Cool. Looks like a sky and some clouds. I wonder if you created these with the smudge brush as well.
Yeah, I can't tell if those are if those part of the photograph, like what do you call those, contrails from jets?
Mm-hmm. It's nice though. I feel like there is a balance with the colors here and the composition of this piece.
Mm-hmm. Angela in the chat says ligatures. That's the word I was thinking of.
Ligatures
Thank you
of the font.
for the letter form, the letter and the ligatures and the. Thanks for that. And the ligatures are the little accents on the top and bottom of a, if you have a serif font versus a sans serif. I should know these things. I worked as a designer for a good 5 years, but I just don't remember. I apologize.
It's okay. Wow, this one is cool too. I can totally see the brush work in this, which I feel like adds a lot of texture, which is nice.
Yes, that's nicely done there with and I like that O. Mm-hmm. You can see how that worked.
Yeah, and the colors I can see are brought in from that.
Mm-hmm.
That confetti around.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice.
And the letters look kind of translucent.
Mm-hmm. Party time. Wow, this looks fun.
That looks like a neighborhood photo, like somebody has some kind of amazing...
All of those costumes, wow.
Is that?
Those are impressive.
I'd like to know where that came from. Is this person in the chat? Valentine?
Excuse me.
Gesundheit. I wonder if that person's in the chat.
Valentine Pierce. Yeah, I'm wondering where that photo is from.
Because those people are not messing around with their Halloween stuff. It's pretty awesome.
Blue for you. Oh, really nice. Yeah, nice tying in those
pretty
colors
nice
as well.
Yeah, that does feel pretty unified there.
West Palm Beach. Cool. I like the layering you did with the buildings as well over the text.
Yep. And all those colors in the type again do work nicely with the photo. Obviously, all pulled from the photo. Nicely done.
Yes, nicely done, guys. Mickey. Oh, I see this one has those colors as well.
So what's cool about that is how the type is not totally, it emerges out of the background, right? It's not really sitting up on top of it so much. That's pretty nice. You have to kind of discover it.
Yeah, it's not so bold. The town was proper, but the memories were not. Ooh, mysterious. Nice shadows there as well.
I wonder what that means.
I know.
That sounds like I shouldn't want to know what that means.
Here's some more. Cool, Singapore. That one's
Singapore?
cool.
Oh, I used to live in Singapore. Who did that?
Oh, really? How long did you live there for?
I lived there for 4 years.
Wow.
In elementary school. What an amazing city that was. Holy cow.
Riaz, let the sneeze go. Don't stop it forcefully. Because I sneezed and went, ah!
Oh no, did you stop it?
Didn't want to spray anything to you guys. Sorry.
When we were kids, everyone's like, oh, if you have to sneeze and you hold it in, you die.
Oh my goodness.
No, but you know how kids are. You always have, if you do this, you die. You know.
Yep,
so
I need
stupid.
to be careful about that.
No, it doesn't happen. Don't worry, Lisa. It's not. It's one of those kid rumors.
Oh, kids are funny with those things.
Mm-hmm.
This one's cool too. Algonquin? Not sure if
I
I'm
don't know what that
pronouncing
means.
that correctly. I like the mist. It seems foggy in the sky. Go outside. Yes, love that. ZZZ.
Oh, I
That's
like how
nice.
it's tucked behind the hill.
Yeah. Nice technique there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anytime you can make the type, do something in the image, right? You just embed it somehow like that. That's a nice thing to do.
Makes it all feel more together, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for submitting, everyone. We have another challenge tomorrow, so we'll take a look again. Now let's go back and see where you've gone with this.
I'm making progress. So if I'll just turn off the layer underneath, you can see. So everything's nice and clean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do, I do such different things all the time. I'm never sticking with one style or whatever. So in this case, the way I'm inking is a little bit sort of like people had pointed out earlier. There are open spaces, right? It's kind of like make a mark here, stick with it. Get a line in, stick with it. And that's a function of me drawing with this specific brush that responds to pressure to increase or decrease the diameter of the brush, right? If I were to select a brush that was a little more consistent with its line weight, I wouldn't ink this way. I would ink more like that frog drawing we looked at earlier that had a much more consistent line quality. All of the ends of every line
Are
touched.
joined,
Yes,
yeah.
it's like you just.
It's a different style, right? Depending on what brush you're using, what look you're trying to get.
And so much of why I made these brushes for myself in the first place was because I enjoy drawing differently.
Yeah.
And using a different tool forces you to just try new things,
That's
to
a
draw in
great
a different
point.
style. Yeah.
Mhm. It really brings out your artist vocabulary, I think, with all the different styles that you can explore with. And I think this kind of forces you to get out of your comfort zone, right?
Absolutely. And again, keeps you from being bored. And what's really cool is things can come out of that you don't expect, and can lead to a whole new way of drawing that you just wouldn't have tried if it hadn't been for the tool, for changing up that tool that you are using, right? So I used to love drawing in Flash, which is now Adobe Animate, for anybody who doesn't know that. But yeah, it's the same application, the name is different. And the reason I love drawing in Flash was it just had a sort of snappy feel to it. And I can't explain it much better than that. But it forced me to draw in a very specific way. And so one time, as a personal exercise, I started drawing these figures every day just to kind of warm up, okay? And I made a blog and called it The Daily Figure. And
Cool.
yeah, and those wound up kind of going a little viral, which is awesome, and led to a bunch of projects with me working in that very specific style. If I hadn't experimented and played around like that, I never would have really had the opportunity to get those other new jobs to come through. So I would definitely encourage people, to try new things just to see where it goes, because it could lead to work, right? Whoops, I don't know what just happened. I switched my brush. Oh no.
Oh,
There we go. It's back.
there we go.
Panicked for a moment there.
Anna says, Kyle, thank you for creating awesomeness. Your brushes are the cherry on top of Photoshop. Oh, that's
What a
really sweet.
Nice thing to say, and
Yeah.
I've never heard them described that way, but that makes me very happy. Thank you so much. Well, and I'm going to keep making brushes for everybody. So remember, there's a brush update coming very soon, in a few weeks here, in June here for the summer, and that's the summer 2019 brush update. And I showed a preview of it on Twitter, so if you follow me on Twitter, you will have seen some of those brushes and how they look, and I think you'll enjoy them. So I think that's a pretty decent job there for this guy. Now, one thing I do when I have a Cintiq is I actually draw straight lines with a ruler. I just take a ruler, slap it on the screen, and draw like I
see,
would.
That's how you get those straight lines.
Yeah, because you can, But if you don't want to do that, you can use your Shift key, and the way it works is you can tap in one spot, hold down Shift, and tap in a new spot, like that. So that's all I'm doing. Just tap, hold down Shift, and tap. And the harder you tap, right, the darker the line will be. So if I do that, you know, the other thing you can do is use the line tool, all right, but then you won't get that same brush quality. So it depends on what you want to do. Another thing I do is, like I talked about earlier, is I'll rotate my my canvas, okay, and then I'll just hold down the Shift key while I draw.
Oh, okay.
So I'll rotate it to wherever that vertical is.
So it's easier, right?
And to rotate your canvas, hold down the R key, okay, and that's all you got to do. I see Paul in there trying to get me in trouble again with that original design. I see you, Paul. I see you making comments about that. Yeah, it's fine. Listen, I have no shame, folks. Anyone who knows me knows that nothing embarrasses me anymore. I really don't care. So if you want to go look up Original Design Gangster on YouTube, you can be my guest.
Oh my gosh, I have to do that after this.
Oh, go for it. I do not care.
So
you'll see me in a whole new light. Not a good one. Not a good one, but it'll be a light of some kind.
Jeremy's asking, if you're starting off a composition, inking, drawing in Photoshop, do you comport it to a TIFF before bringing the file into Illustrator to convert to vector accurately?
One more time. Sorry.
So, if you're starting off a composition and you're inking and drawing in Photoshop, do you convert it to a TIFF or do you bring the file into Illustrator to convert it to vectors accurately? Do you ever go from Photoshop to Illustrator?
Yes, all the
vectors?
time.
Okay.
All the time. Anytime I have to do a drawing that needs to be converted to vector, I will draw it in Photoshop first because I'm so comfortable drawing in Photoshop.
Got it.
I'll draw at a pretty decent resolution. I'll simply copy this, just select all, copy the contents of that layer, go to Illustrator, paste them, and then do the live trace.
Okay.
Which now they call image trace, I think.
I'm not sure.
It's either live trace or image trace.
And that's
I know Paul's in the chat. I know Paul knows the
into...
answer. I think it's live trace or something like that. That's a fantastic feature. It takes your line art, converts it to vector, and then I'll just export it to the client like that. And so far, I've never had any complaints. That's been a great workflow. No one's ever said, this doesn't work for us, you know.
Oh, that's great then.
Yeah. I just did that about a month ago.
Image trace, I think.
Yeah, and I should find the. I wonder if I put it on my site. I think there's. I don't know if my site's still up there, but I did this alligator design. It'll be down a little ways. There he is. So this was for I can't say the name of the brand because it didn't get used, and so I had a client confidential thing. But this character design was drawn in Photoshop, exported to Illustrator, and I did the live trace, so they could use the little the head in the circle and the body and blow them up to the size of the side of a building, basically.
We'll have to wait till our studio guy gets back to help switch the screen. But on Kyle's website, you can see an alligator drawing in the middle. I think 3 rows down. That's what he's talking about.
That's it. That's the one. And so anyway, yeah, this technique of rotating the canvas works nicely for me, and I like it. But you do have to kind of be specific about exactly where you're rotating it, and it takes some getting used to. I think I'm just used to it, and so it doesn't bug me. But some of you, might have some other way of doing it, and if you do, please share it with us. I always like to hear how other people solve common problems.
Yeah, it's a really great tips.
Yeah, I'm trying to get that vertical. Just eyeballing it.
So that just makes it easier for you to draw like a correct line, right? In perspective.
Yeah. For me, what it does is it makes it so that I'm able to use pen pressure while I draw, right? So I can go thin or thick, right? And of course, I could always just instead of doing it this way, I could use the line tool, which is right here. This is the line tool. And I could just say I want the width to be maybe 7 pixels, and then just find exactly where I want my line to be. That's totally fine as well.
Yeah, that works well too.
Yeah, it works depending on if you want to have more or less line weight or whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just so used to doing it the other way, and I'm also kind of patient with myself, so it can be a little time consuming, as you can see, but that doesn't bother me too much. So like now I know I can rotate a tiny bit more, like that. Literally just I'm moving it like fraction of an inch here and there.
Hey Destiny, welcome. We are in Photoshop with Kyle Webster. We're using which brush is this?
This is the Mr. Natural. Ooh, that's a scary sound. What did that mean?
Oh, I think there's a fire alarm.
Oh, we have a fire! Yay! Fire
Well-
May I
man.
have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please?
Maybe
There
we'll
has
be
been
back.
A fire emergency.
Maybe
reported
not.
in the
We're
building.
having a fire
Please
alarm.
evacuate
Okay.
the building by the
Bye
nearest
guys.
exit.
Thank you so
Do
much.
not
We'll
use
see you
the
tomorrow at
elevators.
9:30
Come back
a.m. with
tomorrow,
Kyle.
and I'll draw some more, maybe with the cat and some other things.
Bye.
We don't
Thank
want to
you.
burn up, so we gotta go.
Oh my god.